What's up, everybody? Welcome back to 30 to Life. It's your boy Uso Ron, and today we have a special guest with us.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Wessa Tanupo. I was born in American Samoa, raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, California.
Oh, nice. Okay, so do you know Ellie?
Done time with Ellie. One of my good friends.
I know you know Ellie. So out there in San Francisco, how did you land there? I mean, did you guys come from Samoa at an early age, or how did that work?
Yeah, so me and my little brother, well, actually, I'm the youngest out of the 12. And me and my brother that was before me, we both came from Samoa. You know, living the dream of the parents, getting a better life, you know what I mean? But we came from Samoa straight to Santa Clara, California, and that's where it all started, man. All in the Bay.
How old were you when you got there?
I came down California when I was only in the 5th grade. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're pretty much Bay Area native now, huh?
Yep, pretty much. You can say that.
So you went to school out there and everything. How was it, going to school in San Francisco? Was there a lot of polys in your school or in your neighborhood area?
Well, I started off in Santa Clara, elementary school. Then we moved to San Francisco, and I was in the junior high school. And yeah, it was a lot going on there in them days. My brother's been living in Sunnydale, San Francisco, and that's where it started. That's where we grew up at. And back then, it was a lot more of, the race thing going on, Samoans, Blacks, Mexicans, and I was just a little kid still trying to grow up, but seen a lot.
Yeah. So being that this is a prison channel, obviously you had your little run-ins with the law. Why don't you tell us, when did your life started taking a turn and getting involved with some trouble out there?
Going to school, started meeting people, start. It also starts from home, you know what I mean? Like, I live with my brother, who was very much of an alcoholic, very abusive, but I can't use that as an excuse for what I've done. But my thing is, I'm a kid who is running around with all these things going on in home and outside of home. So, um, my thing is I watched the kids that were having fun, wanting to do what they do, and then it started to where I watched their parents and see what their parents were doing. I started picking up stuff.
Right. So did you get involved with like gangs, alcohol, drugs, things like that?
Yeah, all of that took off when I moved to San Jose, California. You know,
Ah,
we got to San Jose, California. I was still in junior high school. We lived on Poco Way, San Jose, one of the famous streets back then in the 80s. I was raised around a lot of things, gangsters going on. There's people just living life and people having fun. And because back then we didn't have no phones, we didn't have no computers, and we didn't have none of that stuff to stay in the house with. So,
right.
when I got to San Jose, I met a lot of folks. I got a lot of families out there, and the gang came along. The sauce started coming out, the Foxtails, the C Streets, all these sets start coming out. And, me being a people person, I never really stuck to one thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I was down with the Samoans, the C.Y.A gang, because that's what I grew up with. My family, the peers around me, that's all we had. And it was like, that was our family on the streets. We grew
Right.
up with all of that.
So you would say basically, environment is pretty much the major influence in your life during these times when you were young.
A lot,
Right.
because, I can't really say too much about home because home was you know, that was my safe gear, and it was where I could go home and lay down. But you know, even home wasn't good. You know, home was always problems. There was always things going on. You know, and in our house, then it was like, you know, you either do what you got to do or you get on. You know, ain't nobody else gonna do it for you. So my thing was, you know, back then it was I went from gang banging to going to jails to selling drugs to doing a whole lot of stuff, you know, that I didn't even think I could do. You know, I didn't think I can do none of that stuff, but I've done it, and it's not something to really be proud of
Mm-hmm.
because I learned so much from it. I went through so much consequences of, you know, gang banging and going to jail and doing things my way. You know, because back then, I just want to bring this out. Like back then, we had the OGs, we had the elders, you know, who were able to speak to us and try to put some game in our head. But we were the ones that chose not to take that. We were the ones that chose to go the other way, you know. And I'm that one. Like, you know, I've had so many around me that were able to try to mentor me and talk me into going the right way. But that wasn't me then. My mind made then was, you know, it's me. I got to do what I got to do. I want to eat. I want to sleep. I want to go around. You know, it was
Yeah.
just so much going on in life then. You know,
Yeah.
but
I do know what you're talking about. When I was young, it was the same thing. People tried to talk to me and I just wasn't hearing it. You know, I went to YA, went to prison, went to everything, man. I didn't want to hear what people were trying to tell me, man.
yep.
But so I get it. I get it. So when was your first time that you really had to deal with, you know, like any gangs or anything like that? Did you get jumped into a gang? How did that work? You know, or you just were kind of like naturally just brought into it and that was it?
Yeah, more like naturally just put myself in it. You know, it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
nobody jumping me into nothing. I was just part of that. You know, like I grew up in that, and it was just like, you know, like somebody just hand me a paper and say, "Come on, roll with us." You know, it wasn't
yeah,
no
yeah.
jumping me in. It wasn't, you know. And me back then, I had a very bad anger problem, and it turned me into a beast on the street. You know, with just anything. It didn't matter what it was. You know, I went from juvenile hall to the girls' ranch to C.Y.A. to prison to federal prison. You know, so if you really look at that form right there, it's like, you know, how the heck am I here today?
Right.
You know, how am I here today? And I thank God for that because, you know, going through all them prisons and jails and institutions is, you know, it's not a place for nobody, man. Nobody. Nobody deserves to be in there. Nobody deserves to be hurt, you know, but kids
Right.
nowadays, they don't see that because these technology stuff is taking over and it's making it
Mm-hmm.
easier, you know,
Yeah.
making it easier for them. But us back then, it was like footwork, handwork, you know, all of that body work. Everything has
Right.
to do mind made. So yeah, but
Yeah.
growing up in the gangs, you know, it wasn't like we had to go out and gang fight. It wasn't like we had to, you know, go out and do all that crazy stuff that people say. But it was just part of having a set. You know, it was having
Mm.
this thing that you guys want to own and that you call as your own. You know, and to me, you know, when I really found out what gang was really about, I switched up. And I'm not gonna lie, you know, I went from learning how to gang bang to making money, you know. So
Right.
I left the
Right.
gang banging alone and I went to selling. I started selling dope. I started traveling places, you know, doing things, but it just wasn't right because no matter where I went, that mind may stayed with me and that little anger in me, it was, you know, that beast, it just couldn't keep me off the street,
Right.
you know? Like I had to either work with me or that's where I was gonna be all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
You now you mentioned that you went to CYA. What was that about? What case did you catch to go to CYA?
I caught that case in Sunnyvale. You know, went to a 7-Eleven, and back then they had these little mamigos, I call them. My amigos be hanging out there on the stores. You know what I mean? Just me within that mind maze at that age. It was like, don't talk to me or it's gonna be problems. So I used to just walking into the store, and they used to do that little, hey, how you doing, baby? And me then I was like, man, I got time for you. I followed them to their house, and later on that evening I ran up in there. There was like 50 of them laying all over the floor. And, I just ran up in there, robbed them all, and walked out of there while they were all sleeping still.
Mm.
You know what I mean? The only reason why I got caught is because my fingerprint was on the window. So I mean, that's why I ended up in YA. But when I went to YA, I'm telling you, I went to YA when it was co-ed, not co-ed no more.
Mm. You went to Ventura or something like that?
Yes, Amarillo, Ventura.
Yeah.
There, and it was co-ed, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
What year was this?
This was in the 80s.
Oh.
Probably 89.
Oh, okay.
89, yeah.
OG.
I went there, and my first thought about C.Y.A. was, holy moly, like I'm about to die up in here,
Yeah, it's cracking.
Because, yes, C.Y.A. prison is in federal is 3 different places, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
C.Y.A. I learned that you know what? It don't matter where you come from, no matter what you've done on the streets, no matter when you up in here, this gang life in C.Y.A. is indoors. Ain't no running nowhere, ain't no running to your house, ain't no running nowhere. So I watch so much go on in C.Y.A. and I just thank God that I met just the right amount of people in there, to kind of mentor me around because even in YA, I was getting into stuff, getting into fights, running into people's rooms, doing stupid stuff. Like this was me. I grew up as a tomboy, you know, and that was my life. Was like I'm fighting men, guys, boys, whoever.
Anyone, yeah.
YA's experience was yeah, it was one that I think it prepared me for prison and federal. Let me tell you.
Right, yeah.
It's much more of a harsh life in YA than in prison, but either all of them, nobody should be in there. It's not a life at all in there, man. It's just being in there and regretting all these things you've done in life and then trying to bring yourself together and get yourself ready to come out and do some changes, and it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? The only way all of this has worked for me is I have to be willing to do it. I had to be willing to give up.
Right.
I had to be willing to throw stuff out. You know what I mean? Like, but YA was one of my trips that I did 4 years in.
4 years in there?
Yes. And there's a lot more gang banging in there than the street.
Oh yeah.
And
oh yeah.
YA was the gangs was from everywhere. Like every little word you say, you dissing somebody's hood.
I remember those games.
Yeah, so that's where it taught me to like keep my mouth shut, don't say too much, keep it pushing. And that's how I did my time in YA, but I did get into a lot of things.
Yeah. So you did a little time in there, a little 4 years in there. So when you got out of there, why didn't it stop there?
Man, I got out of YA. Let me tell you, my family is in San Jose. We moved from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. Colmar, San Jose. So when I got out, it was like, oh, the life was taking off. It was banging, like everybody making money. This is my lifestyle and my picture, of what it is. I got out and everybody rolling cars, banging, they got clothes, they got all these things going on, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get some of this, I want some of this.
Back in it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
right back in it. And, it sucks because I got out in 92, only long enough to have my daughter and went right back in. And I went back in because I caught a dope case this time. They came and raided my brother's house where I was at and found some dope in the house under the refrigerator. Took me in, and that's my trip to prison.
Oh, okay.
That was right after Y.A., man. I took a trip to prison. And then when I went to prison in 93, that's when I met Ellie. You know, when I met Ellie, I went up to prison. My first time walking into prison. At that moment, at that age, I didn't give a damn. I wasn't scared of nothing. You know what I mean? Like me, my attitude then, I was young. I was like, I don't care. I'm gonna go up in here, do this time, get out and do this shit again. You
Yeah.
know? Not even thinking, not even realizing how many people I've hurt it, how much I'm going through with all the shit that I put my family through.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that we don't think about when we got these little attitudes in our mind. Like, I got this, I got this. No, you don't, man. You don't got it all. You know what I mean? Because if I had it all, I wouldn't have been in jail. I would have never made it to federal. You know what I mean? But I did, man.
Yeah.
At my time in prison,
So let me back you up though. When you went to prison, it wasn't YA this time. So how were you feeling when you hit the penitentiary? I mean, that's a whole different experience, right?
a whole different ball game, man. When YA, my parole officer from YA came up in my court and he was like, you know what? We don't want you. We're going to give you to the state, give you to the state penitentiary. So I was like, all right, man. So they took me off of YA parole, put me on the state parole. So here I go doing time in prison. And my first time getting up to the prison gates was like, man, just way out here in the middle of nowhere. Like I don't see nothing out here. And then just going in there and just hating. I hate everything about prison, man. I hate it. Going in R&R and having to undress and just violate your rights.
Yeah.
Those are the things that these kids need to think about. Like your rights is nothing when you get up in there. You really ain't nobody. You're not you anymore. You are theirs.
Right.
What they tell you to do, you do it. You know what I mean? And then, but for me, I went to prison with that same mentality, YA mentality. Like I'm gonna survive this. I'm gonna get up out of here. I'm gonna go do my thing again. And sure enough, I did my time. I got out in '97, and it was it just wouldn't leave me. That want and that urge of always wanting to do the same thing everybody else is doing. You know what I mean? Or get the same shit everybody, or get the shoes he got, or get the shirt he got, things like that.
Yeah.
That's where I learned
Yeah.
nowadays, the like material ain't shit, man.
Let me ask you something though. I gotta ask the hard question because I was like you. I got out of YA and I had my daughter, but I just kept gang banging. I kept doing my thing, and she was 2 years old when I caught my life sentence. I didn't think about nothing until I was in there, and I was thinking, I'm not going to be there to raise my kid. Now, for you, does this cross your mind, when you're doing time here and there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On my way to prison, I just gave birth in July to my oldest daughter. And September, I caught my case. So I was only with her for 2 months, or maybe a month and a half, and I caught my case. Yeah, it took a lot out of me, because I stressed. The mental stability was not good at all. It made me more mad. and not even to nobody else but myself. Like, now I'm being put away from my family again. Here I go again, messing up. Here I go again, and then this time is different because I didn't just leave my family. Now I left something that I created.
Right.
I left something behind that is mine, and with that, like I went in and kept that in my mind to where, it can't happen. It can't keep happening. It can't keep happening. But you know what,
Yeah.
bro? Things happen throughout my whole life to where it changes a lot of my perspective. It changes a lot of my ways of looking at things, and it changes a lot of my ways of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that, man. And the thing is when you're thinking about all this stuff and you're locked up, because I did the same, and then I got out, I forget. I forget what it was like. You know what I mean? And I'm back in it. One thing I've learned though is that the reason why I kept going back in it, because I wasn't dealing with my issues. You know what I'm saying? My anger issues, whatever else was going on in my head, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I wasn't dealing with that. I come home and I'm just wrapped right back up in it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I wanted to say that because a lot of people who are watching us, they think that, if you had a kid, why didn't you just change? You know what I'm saying? It really ain't that easy.
That easy.
If you're not trying to heal yourself, you know what I'm saying? So people got to understand that, man, when you're going through a lot of things and you're caught up in this environment, and especially if you've been doing it forever, it's a lot harder to kick.
It is.
It's like a drug in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is the thing though. You're right about that. Like when we get out, we all of a sudden forget all of these years that we've been in there. And like for me, I've been there all these years, and I get out, I forget all these tears that I've cried about, all these thoughts that I thought about, and I go back and I did the same thing. You know what I mean? My last round was this federal prison in Hawaii. When they raided me in Hawaii and they took me in, and going to federal is a whole different program from state. So I'm experiencing something different now. So when they took me in, it was like, okay, you're going to course. When they raided me, they found too much stuff, and when I went to court, they just told me that I was looking at 20 to life. You know what I mean? And me sitting there hearing 20 to life, I'm like, I can't see that. I just can't see myself. I know my God is better than that. I know God gonna help me with this. And when I went back from court, my first court, they shot me straight to SHU, lockdown. It had me in lockdown for over 90 days, just because they had to separate me and another girl that was in the general. So yeah, I'm gonna tell you, within those 3 months, I took off in them books, them law books. I took off in them. Every little dot that was on my discovery, you know, I read it. I looked it all up. I learned about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I found some mistakes that they done. You know what I mean? And I beat my case because God was with me, man. God was seriously with me because even though I had the best lawyer, my thing was is the footwork that I had to put in, the drawing out the pictures, the writing out the exact words that were said, all of that. It was like I couldn't have done that if I didn't go into these books and learn about it. But where would we have got the time to do that on the streets? You know what I mean? If we were living this life, and before, my case was done in the federal, I read this book called Battlefield of the Mind.
I believe I heard of that.
By Joyce Meyer. Joyce Meyer. That book, Battlefield of the Mind, really took a toll on the changes of my brain. It got me to really look at things in a different way because every way that everybody looks at it, it's not really what it is. You know, like we all see a different picture of everything that we look at. You can look at something and tell me it's red. I look at it and tell you it's black. You know what I mean? We don't see the same thing, you know? So my whole change is when I got out the federal, and federal is not for anybody, you know. Them judges ain't no joke. You know, the judge I had, she was ready to give me life. She was ready. She was ready to just say, hey, you know, and she was giving everybody life there in Hawaii. Everybody that had went to her for 20 to life, she gave it to them. You know, but I believed in God, and I fasted and I prayed, and you know, I stayed in the books learning about my case, and that's what helped me. You know, but my thing is about going to jail, man. It's not for nobody, man. It took a lot out of my mental health, a lot.
Oh yeah.
You know, and still yet I get out and same thing. West is not done. You know, I'm back at it again.
You saying you got out of federal prison and you was back in it?
I got out of federal prison. I beat my prison federal case and went back to San Francisco and caught another case. You know, just not. And like you said, I just never dealt with myself, my own self. Like I've never really said, you know what, you are your own problem. You know, you are the only one that's putting yourself through this. Nobody else. Because one thing we all have is that choice. You know, you choose to do good, you choose to do bad. That's on you. You know what I mean?
Real talk.
Like one thing I always tell my kids, one thing nobody can take from you is your choice. That's one thing God gave all of us. You choose him or you choose the street. Choose him or you choose out. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I had to do. I had to go back to church and I had to find myself. I had to, you know, hear some good words. I had to, you know, look back to where I've been and what I've been through and really just try to get myself back together to one tack. Because, right, you know, through all the many years, and today I turned 47 today, you know?
Oh, happy
and it's
birthday.
like,
yeah.
Thank you.
That's right.
You know?
And you free.
Yeah, I'm free, you know, and I'm not only free,
Yeah.
freedom, you know, as outside, but I'm also free. My mind, my heart is free.
That's right.
You know, and I feel so less stressed from not ever being on parole, not ever being on probation.
Yeah, what was different now? You know what I mean? Like, did you have to go through some counseling, or did you just say, you know what, this is really the last time?
So 2011, I started working a job in San Francisco with Glide Memorial Church. I don't know if you heard of them. They work with the community, a lot of the homeless community, you know. And when I started working there, that's where it all started with myself. You know, they offered so much support as far as groups, programs, everything, you know, and for me being part of, you know, that work environment, they offered everything to me for free, everything, you know, domestic violence class, you know, AA classes, all of the classes that you needed, they offered it to me. And I took off with it. I took them classes. I went to, sat down in a few of the classes. Even our security team, we would have a little, you know, sit down and mentor, you know what I mean? Like a lot of that helped me. But what really helped me, Brother Ron, is, you know, I ended up pregnant 2015, and my daughter, who's 5 now, was born 2 pounds. 2 pounds, 2 ounces, you know? And it's crazy because before she even came along, I was already starting to step my foot back in there, you know, going through that game life again. Like I'm little by little going in there again, but God put a stop on it. Like, nope, here you go. You got one right here to take care of and sit your butt down, you know? And that's what did it. You know, I haven't I haven't even had the urge to even think about trying to go do anything, to get any money or get any clothes or get any shoes. Or, I don't even have the urge for it. It's like, I don't even care what I put on nowadays. It's nothing because all that life back then to me was all game,
Right.
all game. And I lost every one of them.
You were in that life, really deep. When you started like really going through these programs and things, or just like looking into yourself, did you discover, some of the reasons why you were really out there in them streets like that? You had anger issues. So, did you discover where this anger was coming from?
A lot of it has to do with me being away from my parents. You know, I wasn't raised by my parents because I was raised in California by my brother, my uncles, aunties, and older siblings, but I wasn't around my parents. And what really kicked me in the butt is that, once I got on parole, I couldn't leave state.
Mhm.
You know, I couldn't go to Samoa. I couldn't go nowhere. I just got off parole 2003, and then I caught that federal case 2005, and it was like, it, it, it I just never got the chance to go back home, but I thank God I got to, you know, see my dad before he passed in Hawaii, but I never got to see my mom before she left. You know what I mean? But those are the things that I sat around and I thought about because if I didn't live the life that I lived, I could have seen them before they both left, or I could have went back home and stayed home.
Right.
But the choices that I chose to live was, those are the consequences I face today. Is that I missed out on my parents. I missed out.
Right. You were young, and you didn't have that guidance, out here in Cali, so it's understandable what you went through, and going through without being with your parents and everything. That's very understandable that you feeling some type of neglect or whatever, loss, not having that love you needed, or being able to express yourself to your family or whatever, so it's understandable the decisions you made. You had to pretty much raise yourself. You know, you're learning now, and look where you're at today.
Right.
Like I tell my family all the time, because I had 30 years to life in prison. I was involved with, killing somebody, and I beat myself up for a long time. But I realize now that if I didn't go through everything I went through, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. I'm handling my business, you know what I mean? And I'm staying out of trouble. So I won't take back, the experiences I went through, except for the fact that I hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had your daughter, and you were like, you know what? I got to take care of my daughter. I'm not doing this no more. So did you get off parole and everything? You went through all that?
Yep. Actually, I wasn't even on parole no more after I had her in 2015. So
Oh, that's good.
2015,
Yeah.
I had her in 2016. I made a move because, like I said, I was starting to get into, trying to get my foot back in there. So 2016, I decided to get up and move. We moved to Vegas, So I stayed in Vegas for 4 years, and then we moved to Washington, and
Okay.
but I've I think I've experienced a lot, and I might have been missing out on a lot of things, but just the pain that my family had to go through and my kids, I can never repay them and I can never fix that for them. But I always tell them, what I've done in my life and where I went with mine, it doesn't mean you got to follow me. It doesn't mean it has to be yours because yours is brand new, ain't got no bumps, ain't got no cracks in it. Your road is brand new.
Exactly.
Mine's got bumps and cracks and tree trunks and all of that in it, and I passed it. And I thank God for that. It's like, been through so much, but hey, God is always there for me. And I thank my family for always, being there for me. But I'm gonna tell you, when I go to jail, every time I go to jail, my family, they tell me straight up, you did this shit on your own, you do your own time. You know what I mean? But I feel it because every time I talk to them, I can feel that pain. I can hear that hurt. I can hear that they want me around, but it's, me doing what I want to do. So
it's cool that you said that you feel it and you understand that, um, a few of my usos I talked to, all Samoans are pretty much the same. And his family told him the same thing. You got yourself there, you deal with it, you on your own.
yeah,
But he's out now and he really resents that. He resents his family. He wishes that they would have been there for him and things like that. So he has a very rocky relationship with them. But for you, it's the opposite. You're actually saying, you know what? I take full responsibility. I'm doing this, But I think for your situation, it's different because, like we talked about, you raised yourself pretty much. You know what I mean? So you didn't have your parents there at the time to even blame. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
yeah. So that's the little difference between your experience. But man, I think that's really cool that you can understand that and feel that, you know what I mean? It's taking responsibility. That's all it is. Yeah.
It, man.
So
And
what would you have done different though? You know what I mean? Would you have done anything different or would it went the same way?
I should have just stayed in church. you know,
Mm.
I should have just stayed in church. When I came from Samoa, I knew the Bible from the front to back. I was able to lay out the Bible, the books and stuff, and yeah, that's where it all happened. When I put that book down and picked up something else,
Yeah.
my life turned all the way around.
Mhm.
But
What would you say to your younger self if you could talk to your younger self back then in that position? Or what would you tell somebody who is going through what you went through, those same experiences?
you know, we are known as. For me, I always say I am a transformer. You know, because we're able to transform into these different types of unique self. And for me, then I wish somebody could have just sat me down and say, there's better life ahead of you. There's better things ahead of you. You don't always have to impress or prove yourself to somebody to fit in. You don't always have to go out of your way to get what it is that you think you need, because it's not. And life in jails and institutions is not for anybody, man. That pain and that hurt that we all put our families through and ourselves is it's not worth it. But let me tell you the experience of me living through it. I'm loving it. You know, I love that I can tell you that I've been through it, and I love that I can tell you, that it's gonna be okay. You know, and if I had anybody back then, I wish they would have just told me. Having your parents around does not mean that your life is going downhill. Having parents around does not mean it's over. You know, you still have your own life to live.
Hmm.
Really.
So you feel that if there was just maybe someone there to kind of help answer some questions and maybe just help guide you a little bit, it may have turned out different.
You know, it could have been somewhat, yeah, that way, because back then I think everyone in our family just had so much going on. There was alcohol going on, parties, there's gang banging, it was a lot going on in my day. So not like today, you have time to sit around, talk on the phone. Back then, it was none of that. Communication was really bad. It was either only time they talk to you is when you're in trouble, or it's like yell at you to go do something. And a lot of times, we shut our kids down like that. And I learned that with my kids. That communication is the number one thing, and that's what they all ask me for. Is that communication, because that's something I didn't have. It was more like, my friends, what's up, friends conversation, all of that, but it was never no heart to heart or never know mind of mine or,
Right.
none of that. And if I had that back then, it might have been different. Yeah.
Right. And then when you were going through these programs in prison and things like that, you were getting that finally, and it was kind of helping you at the time.
And I graduated from so many programs in jail. I graduated so many of them, groups, programs.
Yeah.
It's just me not wanting it. And when I did want it, I got it. You know what I mean? It was just me not wanting it at the moment. Yeah.
That's what we call accountability, huh? I mean, a lot of people walk around blaming their circumstances.
No.
I haven't heard you do that.
I can't, man. I can't, because I think about it. I think back to it, and it's like, I did all this stuff on my own, and I really rolled by myself. Let me tell you, I did all these things by myself. I never wanted to involve nobody. I never wanted to hang out with nobody. I want to sell dope. I want to sell dope by myself. If I went to a fight, I want to go fight by myself. I'm not really a people person to where, I want the whole gang to come and watch me fight. No, I wasn't like that, man. Everybody knew me. I rode solo by myself. I do my own thing, and with no fear. Like, it didn't matter to me. But now, when I think back to it, it's like, I could have had a lot more if I would have just let my guards down. Because I don't know what it was I was blocking back then.
It was probably a lot of, hidden issues. But when I hear you, you have a lot of talent. Like, you tell me that you fight your case, you beat your case on your own, a life sentence. You have a lot of talent, and you could have been a lawyer, you could have been a paralegal, and but it's what the other also told me in the other interview. He said it. We grow up and we have a lot of misguided talent.
Yeah.
If there was someone there to just guide us and guide our talents in the right way, so that we can focus that energy that we have in us into something positive. Yeah, man. But like you said, I'm so happy I can sit down and tell you what I've been through. That's some real shit, man. Because today you can help people, and understand yourself as well. Help yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's the main goal for everybody. You got to help yourself before you help somebody else, because I've been through so many programs and spoken there and said a lot of things and all these things. Just like, I used to give out advice, and now I think back, it's like, why didn't I use that advice? Why did I tell her that and I didn't do that? You know what I mean? So things like that is like, those are all lessons to learn from and things to open our eyes.
Yeah.
I don't regret nothing in life. Everything I've been through, it was meant for me to go through, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the lessons I learned. I'm so grateful for everything that I've been through, but not jail. You know what I mean? But it was worth it. And to tell you today, I'm blessed. I'm with my kids. They're happy. They're doing their thing. And it's a blessing. It's a bigger world out there than just gang banging in prisons and jails. There is a bigger world.
So what you doing now with your life?
Now we just moved. I'm just now being a mom.
That's right.
Take care of my little 5-year-old who's full hands, and I'm just waiting for her to go to school and probably get back to work again. But other than that, I sit at home, I write a lot, so every morning I get up, get my little coffee, I get my book, and I start writing, whatever comes to mind. And that's one of the things that's helped me get through these days. Writing.
That's right. So before we close, is there anything you would like to talk about, kind of maybe get some information out there, or maybe
Yeah.
Give them some advice or whatever.
I just want to touch all the young ones' hearts. I know everybody's, able to do whatever they want to do. And you're entitled to all of that. That's your choice. That's what you want to do. But I just want to reach out to all the young ones and tell you guys, your life is much more precious than these little gang fights, these little cars, these clothes, these things. Your life is much more precious to your parents, your family, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, uncles. Man, make it work. Make it work. Love each other. Stop the crime, man. Stop hitting on one another. Stop hating. We need to love each other, work together. Too many of our loved ones leaving this earth nowadays, especially San Jose. San Jose, I got nothing but love for you. Rest in peace to all the OGs. But yes, to all the youngsters in San Jose and the Bay Area, you guys all know what it is in the Bay. Ain't nothing changed. You have to change you to have a life. Do what you got to do.
Real talk. Appreciate you, sis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, man.
All right, everyone. You know what it is. Stay the fuck out of trouble.
Nothing but love to everybody.